After 8 years since the original Switch console, Nintendo's highly anticipated Switch 2 is hitting the shelves. With most of its revenue tied to the console's success, the pressure is on to ensure another blockbuster. Now, the global launch of the Switch 2 marks one of the biggest gadget debuts in years, recalling the first-day mania surrounding the iPhone of a decade ago. Retailers have asked Nintendo to ship as many units as possible to meet high demand. In Japan, websites are giving fans advice on the electronic stores most likely to have models in stock. So, with the console's arrival being seen as a watershed moment for the industry, joining us now is Nitish Mittersain, Joint MD and CEO at Nazara Technologies, India's largest listed game developer, and also with us, Lisa Cosmas Hanson, President and CEO at Niko Partners. Lisa, let's start with you. What's your take? Is it going to be a big hit or not?
Yes, I think it will be a very big hit. It's very exciting. It's one of these highly anticipated days where people are queued up everywhere that in front of the retailers that might be able to give them something if they were unable to get in on the pre-order. We expect at Niko Partners, we're anticipating that more than 14 million units will be sold in this year alone. And that's even slightly more aggressive than Nintendo's own forecast. But we think that over time, maybe 100 million units of Switch 2 will sell. Probably not quite 152 million like the original Switch, but we do think that this is a highly anticipated product, and it's got so many interesting features and functions that I think that the really die-hard users of Nintendo will be jumping and chomping at the bit for at least the first year or two.
Well, what do you think, Nitish? Lisa says it's going to be a big hit. Do you think so? Some say it is just an upgrade, not a revolution, and the price of $450 is just way too expensive.
Yes, no, I think the industry has been waiting to see new consoles come into the market to kind of give a fillip to the industry. And we are pretty excited about it. I also think from an India market perspective, while it's largely been a mobile gaming industry, I think there's an opportunity for family style console gaming to become popular. And with the right pricing, we're hopeful that this will take off in India at some point as well.
So you're saying that the 450 price tag won't be a deterrent in terms of getting the product being popular in the country?
No, I think it is a bit steep, but I think, the Nintendo is more family-oriented, more casual-oriented type of console. And I still think there will be early adopters. And hopefully with India-style pricing at the right time, it can take off well in the country.
So Lisa, the price point is important, and some say that given the uncertainty in terms of Trump tariffs, we could see an escalation in price as well. What do you make of that?
Yes, I think we were surprised that the price is almost $450, $449.99, I suppose. And that is quite steep. I think it will be steep in a lot of the Asian markets. There will be, of course, the early adopters, the well-off people who can afford it. But even in the more developed countries, that's a high price point. And the games themselves are also higher in price, going from what had been a $60 title for a Nintendo first-party game, meaning like Nintendo's original title, to maybe $70 or $80 per title. And that's, I think, also going to be a little bit tricky. On the other hand, when we're talking about the tariffs, that's so up in the air, it's really hard to predict. But we are aware that Nintendo moved production for U.S. sales to Vietnam from China. And I think that was supposed to kind of mitigate some of the risk. But now there are these global tariffs, and we're not sure what's going to happen after some of the hiatus. So we'll see as time goes on if Nintendo will have to raise those prices or if somehow things will work out in their favor.
How are you assessing the risks? Because when you take a look at the previous follow-up products, like the Wii's, for instance, they didn't do well.
Right. Well, I think this is interesting because there's a lot of backwards compatibility, and the new features such as game chat or the improved Joy-Con or the larger screen and the really cool NVIDIA processor, I think it's going to be such an improvement, and you could still play all the games you had played. The console has been in people's hands for, up to 8 years now, and it might be time for people to upgrade. And maybe share with family members or whatever the case may be. And I think that there will be a lot of popularity and demand for this, assuming that people can still buy it for $450 and the games are what they expect. If things go north from there, then it's anybody's guess.
Nitish, is this tempting enough for Nazara to get into console games from being mainly mobile games?
It's very good timing for us. We've been purely in mobile gaming for the last 2 decades, but only recently, as of last month, we acquired Curve Games in the UK, which is an established publisher of PC and console games. So we're very much into this industry now on the PC and console side, and therefore very excited about this launch and to see how it positively impacts our business in the near future.
Are you looking to launch games for Switch?
I'm sure the team is very much on it, and we will surely be, bringing out versions for the Switch.
We know that the gaming market could potentially be worth $9 billion in about 4 years. Talk to us about your own ambitions. How much of that pie are you after?
Sure. Nazara is India's oldest as well as first and only listed gaming company today with a market cap north of $1 billion. But I think we're only getting started despite being around for 2 decades. India has 500 million plus mobile gaming users, but monetization has lagged in the recent years due to propensity of users to pay. But that is changing very fast with the younger generation. Over 65% of the Indian population is less than 35. And for them, mobile first gaming is becoming, their go-to entertainment. So we think these targets could potentially be met or surpassed. And Nazara is very well positioned to take advantage of it. We're investing heavily in the ecosystem, investing in developers. We launched Nazara Publishing recently to work with local developers as well as global players wanting to, access the Indian market. So we're very excited with the prospects going forward for ourselves and for the Indian gaming industry.
You talked about how you're looking at perhaps launching games for the Switch. Give us a timeline. Realistically, when might that happen?
Like I mentioned, we recently acquired a console publisher, Curve Games, and they already have a roadmap, around the variety of consoles, including the Switch. So I think over the next few months, we should see some releases happen.
Lisa, talk to us about AI in gaming. Where are we with that?
I think AI for gaming is still at the beginning of its potentiality. And there are a lot of use cases for development and for improving efficiencies in the development cycle. Sometimes people say that the games these days are very long and arduous and expensive development cycle. So I'm sure that AI in that process will help facilitate kind of production of games and so forth. Perhaps it could even help with game discovery, which is often the problem. There are so many games that sometimes discovery is a challenge for gamers everywhere. So I think that there is a lot of hope, just like there is for all industry, to have AI benefit the games industry. But I do think we're pretty early days.
Early days, but as it stands now, which companies tend to benefit the most? Which ones showing the most potential when it comes to AI adoption and making it successful?
Well, I think in terms of game companies overall, there's probably a winner one day and the next day there'll be another horse passing it. I don't know if there's anybody who we can say is truly a beneficiary at this moment to the point where they have a competitive advantage of significance going ahead of the rest of the pack when it comes to game developers and publishers. Even as it is, we're looking at the large language models and some of the AI companies, even all the tools that are being developed across the world and in the United States, those two are having a multi-horse race at the moment. So it's hard to predict who's going to benefit the most from AI, especially in games. But I do think that, if we're looking at India and at Asia overall, and coming from China, or even where the Nintendo Switch 2 might go, there's a lot of promise for these markets with or without AI in development. And there's a lot of promise for the growth of Nintendo Switch to throughout Southeast Asia, potentially in parts of India or throughout some segments of India.
Nitish, just one final question. Are the days of console gaming numbered? We're seeing a lot of competition from outside the gaming industry, the likes of Apple, Netflix, on giving that competition in 20 seconds. What's your thought?
Look, I think I'll speak from the Indian market perspective. It's largely been a mobile gaming first, market, and consumers are graduating actually to PC and console. So I think at least from our market perspective, the days of consoles are definitely not numbered. There's going to definitely be consumption increase going forward.